Alert Medic 1 respond.
3, 2, 1.
You're listening to the Alert Medic 1 podcast, the premier emergency medical services podcast with your hosts Mustafa Siddiq and Ken Sanner.
Hello and welcome to the Alert Medic 1 podcast. My name is Mustafa Siddiq.
And I'm Ken Sanner.
Thank you so much for joining us on our inaugural podcast. We've been looking forward to recording for quite some time. The idea for this project came to me initially because I wanted to start a personal blog that really documented my experiences as a paramedic. I think as street-level providers, we see such unique situations, so many different patient interactions that we get to have on a day-to-day basis that bring a unique perspective to the medical care that we provide. Quickly, though, I found that I just wasn't able to provide, the quality of content that I wanted to put out without, good medical direction and good partners. And, I approached Ken with the idea and he ran with it. Ken, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when you first came to me about this, probably about a year ago now, I thought it was a great idea. I had actually had an idea myself a few years back to start an EMS educational resource website, primarily focused on providing scenarios and test question banks for students and instructors. And that just never really got off the ground. So when you came to me with this idea, I felt like it was right up my alley, and I thought it was just a great idea.
And that's what we want to be, right? Like, we want to be that educational resource for you all. We want it to be community driven. So we want you guys to really participate in everything that we provide, whether it be a Facebook post, an Instagram post, our Twitter page, and of course the website. We really want it to be community driven. We want to hear about your perspectives, and we want to know how we can improve the content that we're going to be putting out. We definitely have a few goals that we highlight in our website as well. And, the first one is we want to bring that relevant education to the street level clinician. We want that education to be evidence-based and the most recent evidence, and we want it to be safe for not only you as the provider, but also rooted in the safety of the patients that you care for. And with all that, we really want it to be relevant to, I know I already said this, but I really want to stress that we want it to be relevant to the street level provider. Oftentimes that, from my experience with paramedic continuing education, we either find items that are so far, at the basic level that they're either fundamentally wrong or they're just not really useful to the level of care that we provide. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we find items that are so far advanced that they're not really relevant to our clinical care. Or, even if we have the education to understand it, it's really difficult to, put that into practice when we're actually in the back of the box, providing patient care. A little bit about our background. So I started as a volunteer in 2014. I became an EMT and then became a firefighter before starting my paramedic training. Once I was a paramedic, I worked at interfacility transport for a little bit before working for a rural system that was a dual paramedic chase car system. I think a bunch of my education and experience I gained from working in that chase car system where we were running, 14, 16 calls a shift in a 12-hour shift. Ken, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I became involved in EMS in 2005. I got my EMT in 2006, my EMT I-99 in 2008, and my paramedic in 2010. I also started as a volunteer. I served as an assistant chief of EMS for a couple years here in the county I live in, and I started working for a major metropolitan fire department as a paramedic in 2010. Since then, I have become an instructor there. I work part-time at a local community college as an instructor for the EMT and paramedic programs. I did work in a facility myself for a few years as both a BLS and an ALS provider. So I've kind of had a wide range of experiences within EMS over the past 15 years or so. I've really found that it's something I have passion for. It's something I really enjoy.
Yeah, and that's why, I'm really glad that Ken is on board. Ken was my paramedic instructor, and we have, I have the pleasure of teaching with him right now. Currently, I also work for this, so the state EMS agency in Maryland. I work as a infectious diseases professional, and I also make sure to ride as a volunteer as much as I can. I think that our clinical skills that we provide can become really rusty really quickly if we don't practice them. And I recognize that, and that's why, I try my best to ride as much as I can and keep those skills as fresh as I can. So what makes us qualified to provide this kind of information, right? So I think Ken and I will both say that we are not content experts when it comes to physiology or any of the other things that we're going to be talking about. I like to think that both of us have enough experience as paramedics to be able to ask the right questions, and that's what's key for both of us. How are we going to answer those questions? We're going to have the right content experts that are professionals and experts in their respective fields as guests on our podcast to answer those questions. I think this is a good time to talk about our medical director. His name is Dr. David Wittberg. Dr. David Wittberg earned his medical degree from Upstate Medical University College of Medicine in Syracuse, New York. He completed his combined emergency medicine and internal medicine residency at the University of Maryland Medical System. After his residency, Dr. Wittberg completed a fellowship in critical care medicine at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. So Dr. Wittberg is the Associate Medical Director for Baltimore County Fire Department. He's a member of the R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center GO team and Division Chief for Medical and Surgical Critical Care Medicine at the Greater Baltimore Medical Center. Dr. Wittberg is triple board certified in critical care medicine, emergency medicine, and emergency medical services. He's also a member of the National Association of EMS Physicians. He's also a lead editor for the 11th edition of the Orange Book, Emergency Care and Transportation of the Sick and Injured. On top of all that, Dr. Wittberg regularly responds to emergency calls within the Baltimore County Fire Department and the Shock Trauma GO team, where he provides field medical direction, education, and support for day-to-day EMS operations. I'm really excited to have Dr. Wittberg on board just because, he was the initial physician that I reached out to when we had this idea, and he jumped right on ship. He said he actually had a blog that wasn't too successful, but he's been really participating and giving that crucial physician input that we really need for a good quality product. Kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, we're not saying we're the content experts. We're saying that we know which questions to ask, with, of course, the help from the community, and we know who to get the right questions. It's just, I can't stress enough how much we rely and are going to be relying on your input to help us get exactly the right content to you all as the street level clinicians.
The community-driven aspect of this is just so huge and so important. We really want to hear from you, the street-level clinician. What are the issues and trends that you're seeing? What are the questions you have that you don't feel have been answered to the level that you really want to know? We want to look at these issues. We want to go back, research them, present this information to you in a palatable way. As we said, not on either of the two extremes, but somewhere in the middle, where it's easy to read, easy to listen to, easy to understand, while being reviewed by our medical directors. And we actually have some other physicians on the team as well that we'll talk about at a later time. So we really have a great resource here for you. If you provide us the questions, we are going to do our absolute best to answer them. We have lots of things we can talk about. We can sit here all day with our own ideas, but we really want to hear from you. And it's really exciting to have these physicians, especially Dr. Wittberg, on board as our medical director, because I feel like it really gives a level of legitimacy to what we're doing here. There's so many EMS Facebook pages and blogs and stuff like that out there, but how many of them can really say, hey, not only do we have a physician medical director, but we actually have multiple physicians on staff that we can contact at any time and provide some really well-researched and reviewed content for you.
And that's key. And I've said that multiple times. We're also going to have various pharmacists, nurses, paramedics, other allied health professionals that we're going to have on board with us that are going to be able to give their perspective on it. We have, I'm really excited to be interviewing one of our local social workers that's really dealing a lot with the current opiate epidemic. And we want to get some law enforcement folks as well that we work in partnership with all the time. With that being said, we want to finish up. We don't want to take too much time on this initial podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter at alert underscore medic one.
Yep.
And of course, please subscribe to our website. We definitely plan on putting out regular content, whether it be blog articles, whether it be, podcasts. And please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, please email me directly at admin@alertmedic1.com. And of course, you can always submit contact forms on the webpage as well. That's it for now. Thank you so much for listening.
And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. You can find us anywhere good podcasts are found. So share it, subscribe, download it, and listen.
Yeah, so we're going to be on Spotify, we're going to be on SoundCloud, and we're going to be on iTunes. Perfect. Thank you very much for listening in. That's all for now.
You've been listening to the Alert Medic One podcast, the premier emergency medical services podcast with your hosts Mustafa Siddiq and Ken Sanner.